Hi, I'm Sarah Shea.
And I'm Strangely Duesberg.
Welcome to the Pilot House.
Podcast where we watch all the shows we missed the first time around.
And try to figure out where the heck they were going with this. So, Strangely, what do you know about the Dick Van Dyke Show?
It does not star Jerry Van Dyke, as far as I know.
Tragically.
Tragically. Friend of the pod, Jerry Van Dyke. Dick Van Dyke is in it, and it's a name show. So I was under the impression that it was like a sort of like a variety hour kind of thing that he has guests on and they do stuff with him. But I think maybe it's more of like a sitcom that he plays like a version of him that has stuff happen. So I guess more like the Andy Griffith Show.
Yes.
Or I Love Lucy more than like the Late Night with Conan O'Brien or something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Because I mean, he would be a great host. I feel like for a variety show.
He may have had a variety show at some point. I mean, a lot of people did, especially in the 70s. But no, this particular program is not that. It is a sitcom, much like the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I guess I don't know if you're familiar with that, so maybe that's not useful. But
I'm vaguely familiar with that. Yeah.
She does not play herself on that show. Much like later shows that were spun off from a popular comedian, they kind of stopped calling it the real person's name show. Mm-hmm. Although, fun fact, I Love Lucy was originally going to be called the Lucille Ball - Desi Arnaz Show.
Wow, that really doesn't roll off the tongue.
No. And I think it originally aired, I feel like I heard somewhere it originally aired as like the Lucy Desi Show or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it was, in syndication, it became I Love Lucy or something, which is just wild. With the Dick Van Dyke Show, he plays, I believe, a writer, maybe a TV writer, named like
Jerry Van Dyke.
I feel like his last name is Petrie. I don't know why. I feel like I've heard the character's name before. And went, oh, okay, so he doesn't play he's not Jerry Seinfeld, who plays Jerry Seinfeld on the show Seinfeld, even though he's not playing himself exactly.
Right.
In this case, the character has a different name, which I think is the case with the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I think her name is Mary on that show, but she's married someone else, much like Lucille Ball plays Lucy Ricardo on I Love Lucy. So, yeah, this one, I think they just went for a totally different name. I might be wrong. Could be Dick Petrie, Mm-hmm. But Mary Tyler Moore plays his wife. I believe the show is in black and white. I don't think I've ever seen it in color, rather. Like, some shows made the transition.
Right.
I feel like everything I've seen of this show has always been black and white. Actually, I think that's all I know about it. I didn't see as much of this as a kid on Nick at Night as I did some of the other shows we've talked about this season.
Yeah, for me, wanting to cover this show this season when we were sort of batting about ideas for shows, I just saw it on the list. And there was the Dick Van Dyke name recognition, but I have no recollection of ever having watched this. Now, once we see it, I might be like, oh, I totally remember this, but I have no recollection of ever having seen it. Or even, as I said earlier, any vague notion of what it's even about.
Yeah, I know I've seen bits of this show, but I think it was as an adult, possibly like catching it on TV at some point when I still had TV, or when I was in a place that had TV on, And I know I saw a scene where like he goes to school for his kids' like career day or something, and is like, how do you explain being a television writer to a bunch of kids? It's not something they understand like they understand being a firefighter or something. So I vaguely remember that, and I think that's why I even know that was his job on the show. And also there's a famous gif from this show that I love deeply, which is you know what, I'm not going to describe it just in case it's in the first episode. We'll see if I remember to bring it up. People who have seen this gif probably know exactly what I'm talking about, but it's a funny moment, so I'll let it, just in case. If it ends up being in the pilot, I will be over the moon, because it's very cute. But, I think also this shows where Mary Tyler Moore kind of got her start. Mm-hmm. Like, that's why she then got a Mary Tyler Moore show later.
And that is a factoid that is ringing a bell for me as well.
Yeah.
So,
because every clip I've ever seen of the Mary Tyler Moore show was in color, I feel like.
Fun fact about me and why I know that fact about Mary Tyler Moore is the Weezer song. Totally drawn.
Buddy Holly.
Buddy Holly. I'm like, it's the one with Buddy Holly. What's it called? Oh, that line, I look just like Buddy Holly, and you're Mary Tyler Moore. When I first heard the song, I didn't know who that was.
Yeah.
And so I like went and looked it up and sort of, okay, that's who Mary Tyler. And wherever I read that information was like, got her start on the Dick Van Dyke Show was mentioned in that Wikipedia article or whatever when I originally saw that information. So there you go. Should we go watch this thing then? And
I feel like that's pretty much everything that's that both of us know. So we're ready to actually watch an episode of the Dick Van Dyke Show.
You'll have to pay the whole fare.
All right, now, where are we in the script?
Well, we're just coming out of the last commercial into the goodnight bit. Let's see. Supposing our star says, "Good night, folks. Sure hope you enjoyed our show. And remember, the Alan Brady thought for the day is, drive carefully, especially on the sidewalks."
No.
Wait a minute. Maybe he says something philosophical like, "Folks, remember, save your money. Someday it may be worth something."
Yeah.
No.
What do you mean, no? It's a good joke.
I don't think it's a good joke.
What do you think, Sally?
I think it's a great joke.
Why do you think it's a great joke?
Because it's 5:30 and I got a date at 7.
I don't think we ought to end this week's show with a joke. I'd like Alan to come out and say something with meaning.
What kind of meaning?
Well, I wrote down a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson.
What shows he write for?
Hey guys, Future Sarah here with a quick caveat before we get into the rest of the episode. We enjoyed the show so much that we ended up kind of spoiling all of the jokes in the episode. So if you're at all interested in watching the pilot of the Dick Van Dyke Show, I recommend going to YouTube. It's like 25 minutes long. The title of the episode is The Sick Boy and the Sitter. Just go watch it and then come back and listen to the rest of the podcast. Otherwise, we're going to just spoil it for you. So consider yourself warned. All right, so what were we right and wrong about?
I'm surprised, that it actually did have a variety show flavor a bit.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
Kind of going into it, I vaguely thought like, okay, you're gonna have a show with Dick Van Dyke in it every week. You're gonna have like guests. You're gonna have musical numbers. You're gonna have comedy bits.
Yeah.
And we actually got kind of like all of that in this. Although it was, there was sort of the framing device around it, but
it was still a sitcom.
Yeah.
Mary Tyler Moore is his wife.
Mm-hmm.
He is a TV writer.
Mm-hmm.
I had that right. I had forgotten that I kind of knew that he was on a writing team. There were two others.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw the three of them standing next to each other, I went, okay, I've seen this. And I recognized Rosemary's name, though I don't know why.
Yeah. And now, and seeing the three of them do their like dinner party shenanigans, I've definitely seen bits from this.
Yeah.
That I didn't know were, it's like Dick Van Dyke singing song or something like, like that.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen some YouTube clips from this or something.
Yeah.
Never in the context of like watching this show.
Yeah. I was surprised how much of the episode was given over to, and now these three funny people do some bits that they would do at a party, but it didn't feel shoehorned in.
Yeah.
Like I was aware that's what they were doing, but it was still delightful. It was really enjoyable. I was a little worried when, Lori, his wife, kept looking at her watch. I thought, he's going to be goofing it up, and any second now we're going to look back and she's going to be gone because she just left without him or something, and it's going to create tension or something like that.
Yeah.
But it didn't. It was an excuse to have him do, a bunch of fun.
Yeah.
The three of them do a bunch of fun bits.
With a little bit of a ticking clock for the rest of the plot.
Right. Yeah. And it wasn't like harped upon that she said, you're going to be asked to entertain, and then he was. It didn't become a thing where she's like, I told you.
Yeah.
I told you so, you know.
Well, and he also clearly loves doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's not like he's like really put upon or worried that his job is on the line. Like, he's clearly enjoying himself.
Yeah. Honestly, I think if I was a performer and I got a job as a writer on a TV show and I did never get to do the bits, I just had to write them and let somebody else do them, I would appreciate a chance to do my own bits in a work setting.
Yeah, I'm curious. I did just look at the IMDb page for this, and the Alan Brady, who they are writing for, is played by Carl Reiner in like a number of episodes. So I think at some point in the run of this, you actually do get to see what the Alan Brady show looks like. And that show, based on what they were saying as they were writing, sounds like it is a more traditional kind of Johnny Carson
variety
talk show
type thing. Yeah.
So, yeah, like there may be more bits of this show in other episodes that are much more kind of the standard Tonight Show type thing as I was picturing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you already brought it up, but that was something that neither of us knew that we didn't know, which is that the show was written and created by Carl Reiner. His name appears in the credits, written by Carl Reiner, and we said in unison, Carl Reiner! We were both, I mean, surprised and delighted. Like, I kind of went, well, that explains a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, because let's get into it. I loved this. I was delighted.
This, of all of these that we've watched, of these sort of 50s, 60s shows, this holds up the strongest in terms of being genuinely delightful and funny now, and not as just a cultural artifact. Like, it works now. Yeah.
Oh my God. So many of the jokes and the bits just worked. It was just like, after a few of these episodes ended up being a little bit of a bummer, just because it was like, okay, I don't know what I expected, but at the same time, it's kind of a slog to watch this.
Yeah.
And this was a delight. It drags a little in the middle when they're arguing about whether to go to the party. I did feel like that dragged a little, and I'm like, okay, come on, just it also felt to me like a very ridiculous thing to argue about. Mm-hmm. But also I kind of went, okay, different situation, different setting, different time period, all that. But it's...
I actually, based on how the whole episode paid off, I actually, in retrospect, like that bit more.
Yeah, no, and that, I feel that way too. And that's what's great. Like, the way that it wrapped up in the end made it all kind of like, I've kind of forgiven it. If I wasn't sitting here talking about the show in a podcast, I wouldn't even mention or think about the fact that the middle dragged a bit.
So really, really quickly, do you want to just give the audience a quick synopsis of the plot of the episode, and then we'll get back to talking about that particular interchange, because that actually has a big effect on why I really like this. So give them that recap, and then we'll come back to that interchange, because it is the pivot for this episode.
Yes, for sure. So we start, surprising to me, with Mary Tyler Moore and the kid who plays her son.
I mean, if you've got Mary Tyler Moore in your show and she's as gorgeous as she is in this, you're gonna start with Mary Tyler Moore.
Cute as 25 buttons. Like
24, not enough. 25 buttons, Mary Tyler Moore level.
Yeah,
cute.
26 is like too cute. It gets cloying, right? Yeah. 25 is the right number of buttons. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about. I was genuinely surprised. We start with a pretty long scene with just Lori Petrie, the mother, and their little kid. I've already forgotten the kid's name. Richie?
Richie. Let's go with Richie.
Honestly, if it's not Richie, there's got to be kids in that era named Richie. A pretty extended scene with the two of them doing bits.
Yeah.
Like, not just establishing the plot, like what they also do, but like the kid is doing bits and she's doing bits. They're doing like a little two-handed scene with the two of them, which was delightful. And the kid did a pretty good job, I thought. Like, there were times when you could kind of tell he was like doing that thing where you look up and away from what's happening while you're trying to remember what you're supposed to say. He's a little kid. He, 6?
Yeah.
Something like that.
In that range.
But yeah, pretty long sequence where he comes back from playing with the neighbor's kid and is established that he had to come home because the other little girl had come down with a fever. So Lori checks his temperature and asks him, how he's feeling. And there's some great bits where she offers him a cupcake, and he says, "No, I don't want one." And she's like, "You don't want a cupcake?" And like, reasonable. I would be concerned too.
Yeah.
And then she said, "Did you eat while you were at the neighbor's house?" And he's like, "No, I just had some water." And she goes, "Well, you should feel hungry then." And she checks his forehead with the back of her hand, and he goes, "Do I feel hungry, Mommy?" I laughed out loud.
Like, of course, Dick Van Dyke's little boy would be doing dad jokes at age 6.
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
That
oh my
checks,
God.
That math scans.
Do I feel hungry, Mommy? Oh my God, I was dying. So she then decides, like, okay, well, maybe you should go to bed and rest or whatever. Then we cut to at the Alan Brady Show, the writer's room. Nice establishing shot of the door to let us know that's where we are. And we have our 3 writers. I didn't catch the other 2 names, but Rosemarie and Mr. Comedy Guy.
Yeah, that works.
Honestly, he's such a perfect casting for that role.
Yeah.
You've got Rob Petrie, Dick Van Dyke's character. He's the lead writer of the show. He's a little bit younger than the other 2, I think. Then you've got Rosemarie, blonde, like kind of sassy, a little bit older. She's the one sitting at the typewriter typing what they're working on. And then you've got the a slightly crotchety guy who he's worked in this industry for 25 years, and he's got all the old jokes, and he's like kind of got a
Buddy. His name's Buddy.
But of course his name is Buddy. What else could it be? That's perfect. Thank you. Yeah. What did you get? What Rosemarie's character's name is? Sandy, maybe.
Sally.
Oh, I was closer than I expected to be.
You were closer than you expected to be.
So Sally and Buddy. Buddy is very like. God,
He's a fast-talking, witty, kind of like a Joe Pesci type character.
Thank you. I was like, he reminds me of somebody more
I've been in this business for 25 years, and I've got a joke for every word in the English language. Like he's like that kind of.
Yeah, like he was. Yeah, he's delightful.
Sorry, make that noise again.
I don't know what I was doing there, but I'm glad it made you laugh.
That noise was accompanied by finger guns, just so you have.
Oh yes, that is very important to understanding. This weird noise, finger guns. Okay. So they're working on the final. They're trying to find the final bit to end the show on. Sally suggests a pretty funny joke.
Yep.
Buddy suggests a pretty funny joke, and the best part is, they both sound like the kind of joke that would be maybe a bit tired. Mm-hmm. And Rob certainly seems like not good enough. But I'd never heard either of those jokes. I thought they were pretty great.
The jokes are tired. They're both a tired format.
Yeah.
But the particular wording was like clearly they wrote a new wording.
Yeah.
For this episode.
Yeah. Anyway, so then Rob suggests, what if we didn't end on a joke? What if we ended on a philosophical note? Here, I wrote something down by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Buddy says, "Well, what show does he write for?" Hey. And that's a good excuse for them to establish that Rob has been to college. And Buddy has not. Possibly Sally. I don't think she doesn't chime in on that subject. So we're getting a little bit that he's going to be a little more like high-minded sometimes about the comedy. And Buddy's kind of like, hey, I've been slogging away at this for 25 years. I know a joke when I hear a joke kind of guy.
They do a great job in this scene of establishing the triumvirate of writers. And you really get a sense of why everyone's there and everyone has value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think that's one of the reasons this show holds up so well is that for the 1960s, when this debuted, you have a woman in the writer's room.
A woman?
Yeah, with the hair and everything.
She was typing, though.
Yeah, but
she
wasn't like just there as their typist.
Yes, no, I'm just joshing.
Yeah, I mean. And she gets in my opinion, one of the funniest bits in the thing where she starts typing something when they all haven't agreed because she's she's in
a hustle. She wants to get out.
And Rob whips the paper out of the machine, and she goes, "Well, I'll just type it on the ribbon." but pretty good. But to have her there as a valued member of the team who is contributing, who is respected, and there's no moment where they're like, "Well, a woman wouldn't understand," or like.
No, absolutely. The fact that she is a woman is not brought up in any negative way.
Or at all. She's just another
Yeah,
writer.
that's a good point. I mean, she brings up that she's going on a date, but
Yeah.
oh God, that was such a good line. I'm gonna try not to repeat every joke from the show, but look, I've got a date with an unmarried accountant, and I like to get there before he gets married.
Yeah, and they don't tease her about the date. Like, oh, I'm gonna. Like,
yeah, no, they don't tease about the date. It's just a matter of fact of like, hey, that's why I want to get out of here.
It's not that hard to have a quote unquote mixed workplace.
Yes.
And not be an asshole.
Yeah, let's be clear. Everyone in this show is white. But yeah, I mean, for 1961, it's like, hey, having a woman writing comedy, not bad.
Yeah.
It could have been worse. It could always be worse. Anyway, so then the producer walks in.
Yeah, it is revolutionarily good for the era.
Yes.
I don't want to. I want to really draw a line. I'm drawing 2 lines under it with a bullet.
All right, I will let you have those lines and the bullet.
Just it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, she's wonderful. It's great. Yeah, at no point does the guy shoot down her jokes.
Yeah.
Any more than Rob shoots down her joke the same way he shoots down Buddy's joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody says like, what do you broads know about comedy? Right. Yeah. It's absolutely the three of them clearly. They have tension. They disagree sometimes about things, but they work well together. Each of them is bringing something different to the situation. It's great. She's giving, her thoughts. It's played very equally for all three of them. Then we have the producer comes in.
Mel.
And what?
His name is Mel.
Okay, thank you. I didn't catch the name. Mel. I believe his last name is Cooley. Mm-hmm. He is bald, so of course Buddy calls him Curly.
Nice.
Get him. So he comes in and is clearly very dry and Sally pretends not to have seen him and they're in the middle of an argument and starts going, well, but this show is being produced by Mel Cooley and so we must raise ourselves to a higher level of quality or an expectation or something like that. She seems to be giving him a long big speech of compliment and she says, and he is the producer because, and Buddy cuts in, because he's the star's brother-in-law. Looks right at him like, I got your number. Anyway, he comes in to deliver the news that there is a party tonight, at a short notice, at the show's host, Alan Brady, at his penthouse apartment, with all of the suits and all the executives and what have you from the network, and they would like the three of them to come along. And they're somewhat surprised and delighted by this information. So he also is established very clearly in this scene that he is a bit dry. He's a bit, staid. Mm-hmm. He says, Rob, I must insist as the head writer that you give me, the producer, some respect from your...
I insist that your team gives me a little respect.
Of course, and then Buddy says, hey, we're giving you as little respect as we can. If this show had had a rim shot, for every joke that deserved a rim shot, the drummer would have broken his sticks. I don't know what I was going with there, but it was. So he's the boring guy who's the producer of the show. So we get his character in a nutshell there. So then we cut to Rob coming home at the house and saying, "All right, sweetie, get on your fancy party dress because we're going to a party." And she's like, "Well, we can't. Our son is sick." And he's like, "Oh no, how is he? Is he?" Has he seen the doctor? Remember when doctors made house calls? No, of course I don't. But I remember hearing about it.
So they have a lot of back and forth about he wants to go to the party. She thinks they should stay for the kid. Yeah. Because he might be sick. And then she says, but I'm having a woman's intuition that if we leave, something's bound to happen. Yeah. And they go back and forth a lot. He clearly feels a bit of a work pressure to go to this thing. But he also obviously just wants to go because he thinks it'll be fun. Yeah,
he wants to go to the party. He's kind of petulant, but also she is being kind of unreasonable. Their son does not have a fever. Yeah. He's not showing any symptoms except that he didn't want a cupcake. That is the sole symptom. So then they go into the kid's room and do a bit where, Rob tries to get him to eat a different cupcake. And the kid seems absolutely fine except that he's refusing this cupcake. he's jumping around in bed and being like, Daddy, I'm really sick, so I don't have to go to school tomorrow. Clearly, he's just enjoying being sick because of the attention, and he's hoping he won't have to go to school, even though he likes school, but he already knows his alphabet. I loved that bit.
Yeah,
the ending on W. Precious. What happened to XYZ? Oh, I remember them, but I got tired. That kid. So finally, they go back to the kitchen and they continue the argument. She gets out some liver, and that bit where they're like putting the liver in and out of the pan back and forth, like there was actually like steam coming out of the pan. Yeah. I was like, they had actual liver and a stove that worked, so they could do that bit and it would actually look real. Like, well done.
It was, I actually enjoyed that because and then like maybe it's one piece of liver, now it's both, now it's in and out of the pan, and they both clearly had like. Dick Van Dyke, obviously a lot of like physical comedy timing can do it.
Yeah,
but she got some good, more subtle moves in there as well. Like,
yes.
It's fun.
Yeah.
She finally relents and they get a sitter.
Yeah.
And they have this whole thing where she's trying to give the sitter, here's the phone numbers and call the doctor and here's the order to call.
Call us and then call the doctor, but only if something's really wrong should you call the doctor, but if anything happens wrong, call us. And then she starts rattling off what food is in the house and where it is located. And like, lady, I hate to break it to you, but as a former babysitter myself, she's going to look in all the cabinets as soon as you leave, and she will find which snack she wants to eat.
And they do, I mean, this is it's another example of taking a tired joke or something really obvious and sort of playing it a little bit differently. He kind of says he tries to put his foot down. He says, if you don't leave right now, I'm going to pick you up and carry you out of here.
Yeah.
And then she keeps going on and he picks her up and like throws her over his shoulder, kind of a fireman carry.
Yeah.
And he starts walking out. She goes, oh, my purse. And he
walks her
backs
back
up so she can pick it up.
Her purse. And then walks her out. And the best part of it is she's still shouting instructions and going,
don't go into Richie's room. You may wake him. Use the newspaper. It's in the wastepaper basket.
The party will be over.
There's pears and apples in the fruit bowl. Bottom shelf of the refrigerator. Just a minute. What did you say was in the bottom shelf of the refrigerator?
Who knows? If it's food, eat it. If it's a phone number, call it.
It's like, mwah. I actually really like the part where he's like, come on, honey, are you going to tell her what TV shows to watch next? And she goes,
oh, there's a special.
Actually, there is a special tonight on, I don't know what channel it is. And that's when he picks her up and it's like, we are done. Anyway, it was actually a funny bit. And I think that as long as it went on, it was all worth it because of his last bit with, if it's food, eat it. If it's a number, call it.
Well, and establishing them as a couple, clearly a couple that's going to be doing a lot of two-hander bits like that.
Yeah.
Their chemistry immediately, episode 1, works. They're having fun. They're both giving a lot, and it's not the relationship I would expect of the era. That's really like, well, men are this, like I'm the man, and it was like it's not leaning on that in terms of power dynamics between them. The power dynamics that are happening between them are the typical give and take, high status, low status exchanges that you see in any comedy duo.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like a more traditional married couple duo. It's just like these could be any two comedians getting a lot of these lines in that aren't necessarily tied to their sort of perceived gender roles in the relationship.
Yeah.
Which is, again, surprising and uncommon for something made in the 60s.
Yeah.
So tell us about this party that they go to, Sarah.
Well, the funny thing is they then cut to the party and she's putting her coat on. And I'm like, why is she putting her coat on? What's happening? And we've cut to later in the party already. And they're like heading home. And someone goes, you're not leaving already, are you? And she's like, oh, yes, well, we've got a sick kid at home. So it is 11:30. And he goes, oh, but Mr. Brady has got stuck on a phone call and he was hoping that the writers might do something to keep the party going. And she says, like, entertain? And Rob's like, I'm sure we could do a little something. But he really she's a little bit nonplussed, but he clearly looks like he's like, okay, we'll just do a little something. Like,
to his credit, he says, we'll do 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And they take less than 15 minutes to do their little bits.
Yeah.
So he doesn't say, we'll do 15 minutes. It's like 3 hours later.
Yeah.
Like, they do 15 minutes.
Yeah, they really do. It's a pretty tight, quick little bunch of bits right there. I mean, they have clearly done this at a party before. It's practiced. And at first I was a little bit like, ugh, you do not ask a performer to entertain when you invited them as a guest. Gosh. Also, they've got a band there that's clearly a hired band. Like, they're there to entertain. But clearly they're having a good time with it. And all three of the writers look like they're having fun. Yeah. Not one of them looks like they're like, I thought we were really guests this time. You know, they're there to have a little bit of fun too. So then they do a bunch of bits, all of which are great. Yeah, they do a quick little vaudeville review. Buddy does some... he takes suggestions from the crowd. Yeah, and he does jokes with all different words. It's really funny. Yeah. Sally sings a novelty song where she does a Jimmy Durante impression. Oh my God. So good. So good. It was really great. And then Rob, Dick Van Dyke, does an impression of a drunk guy coming home who stops being visibly drunk when his wife looks at him. Yeah. So Sally plays the wife. So good. And he whenever she's not looking at him, he looks like a barely standing one of those dolls with the elastic in them where you push the button on the bottom and they collapse. He looks like and one of those. And he's got all the legs to do this bit with, and he is using every inch. Oh, it is like you can watch the show for free on Pluto TV. It is worth watching just this episode just for that bit. There were only like 2 ad breaks, I think. Yeah, it was totally tolerable. Yeah. Oh, I'm like still it's been a long time since Pilot House has watched a pilot for a show that my abs have hurt after watching it, and I like genuinely laughed a bunch watching this. Yeah. It was so good. Yeah, I really honestly enjoyed this more than I think any of the other shows. But we'll finish the recap. Yeah. So they do the bits. It would have been so easy for these bits they're doing at the party to have gone on a bit long or to have been a bit like not funny, but everyone is having a great time except Lori, who's like kind of looking at her watch, but she's not angry. No. She's just like, I'm just worried. I'm not enjoying myself because I'm worried. And so every moment of it as the viewer of the show is delightful. The entire bit of I'm doing an impression of my wife's uncle. I was expecting that to like fade out, like here's my impression of some drunk guy. No, that was one of the funniest little comedy bits I have ever seen. Yeah, it was very good. It was so good. So then they finally leave. They get home and everything's quiet. And, Lori's looking around like, what has happened in my absence? And he's like, everything's fine. See, everything's just as we left it. There's the babysitter's school books and the doctor's bag. The doctor's bag! Whoa. And then, the neighbors come out. This is the first time we're meeting the neighbors who live next door, who have a little girl the age of their son that he was playing with, and the teenage daughter who's their babysitter. So clearly they're going to be a part of the show. Yeah. And they're just saying, kind of vague things like, oh, of course, we came over or something. And it's like, oh, well, how's Richie? Oh, he's fine. He's asleep. He had a big night or something like that. And they're like, what? So Lori rushes off to check on Richie. The doctor comes back in. Rob's just attacks him with, what happened? What happened? How's Richie? And he's like, oh, he's fine. Yeah, he held up very well. A lot of kids would be very upset by that much blood. Blood? What? And then the babysitter comes out with a bandage on her head. She just hit her head on the freezer door. Called the doctor. He, stitched up her wound or something. I'm not clear. It just has a bandage, so you can't tell. And we don't see Richie. He's just asleep. But then everybody else leaves, and Rob and Lori have a nice moment at the end where he says, you really did sense that something was going to happen tonight. She thought something was going to happen to her son because he was sick. She did not psychically know that the babysitter was going to hit her head, but he doesn't say, see, I told you Richie was fine. That was a fluke. It had nothing to do with Richie. He says, you really did know something's going to happen. And she's like, well, it's a sweet moment between the two of them. Yeah, and that is the episode. Yeah. And that resolution. Yeah. You brought us back to sort of what I was talking about as we launched into the recap. You're welcome. It was perfect. Yeah. That resolution is what makes their back and forth argument about should we stay or should we go now work so well. Because at the end of it, when all is said and done, they were both right and they were both wrong. Yeah. And they get to have that resolution where it's not like nobody gets an I told you so. Yeah. And nobody feels dumb
for their choice.
Yeah.
And it's an earned resolution, not a, well, everything's fine in the end. You know? Oh,
yeah.
I love you. And we kind of force it into the square peg into the round hole to before the credits roll.
Yeah.
Like it resolves in a very satisfying way. And this is something that you still won't even see in comedy shows today. That by the end of the 30-minute episode, we've resolved sort of the plot line into a satisfying conclusion where all the bits fit. Mm-hmm. And it feels like everything that happened was necessary. You know, it's almost this little button at the end where they're both right and they're both wrong makes that earlier back and forth.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's also that thing where the best comedy is universal. Like, not everybody's wondered should they stay home for their sick child, but everybody's had that, oh, shouldn't I, FOMO thing. And so to watch it play out with the liver flying back and forth, and the best line in that bit with the liver, at some point she goes, "Put my liver back."
Yeah. That's pretty good. Oh. And what I like too is they did the very last line of the episode is a bit of a callback to that earlier argument. Mm-hmm. Where he's trying to be like snuggle up to her and give her compliments, be like, "You're the prettiest girl I know. I want to show you off." And she's like, "No, I'm not going." And she said, and he's like, "Why do you have this feeling? Why do you think something's gonna go wrong?" And she goes, "I'm a woman." He's like, "I noticed." And they are a very affectionate, loving couple. Yeah. And then at the very end, he's like, "How did you know that? Or how did you know? Something really did go wrong. How did you know?" And she's like, "Well, honey, I'm a woman." And as she's saying that, she takes off her pearl necklace and walks out of frame. And he looks after her like, and it's like, that is the most subtle, like, just takes off the necklace, which I immediately felt like, oh, that felt like really intimate. It's like, it was way more than if she'd like unzipped her dress or something like that, right? It was so subtle, but like, this is the first step of me getting undressed. I was like, oh, all right. It's like a nice little callback, and also shows them being a very affectionate, loving couple, which, like we talked about with Addams Family, was not always the case on television. And a lot of people refer to Gomez and Morticia's relationship as like surprising. That's part of what is weird about them, is that they are so openly affectionate and like clearly attracted to each other. And honestly, I mean, obviously they weren't quite on the level of Gomez and Morticia, but like Rob and Laurie clearly do not only love each other, but are attracted to each other and physically affectionate and all that.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, even compared to modern television, it feels refreshing and just nice.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be, just even the fact that they're having a disagreement and it doesn't feel uncomfortable to be watching it happening. They're just two people having a bit of a tiff.
Yeah.
I know I've talked a lot about Sally and just how her place works in the writer's room, but she just like getting her own whole bit in their little variety review with the Jimmy Durante impersonation song, and just getting to rule the room. It's like, clearly they're like, this performer gets a spotlight. This is the bit she does.
Yeah.
She is someone that we value on this team. Like the writers team that they set up is such a fun dynamic, and it's such a good dynamic.
Yeah.
And I genuinely fixated on this because I feel like even a modern show that gave us the same makeup of a writer's team, where you have like 2 men and a woman or whatever, there would be something in there where it has to be pointed out that I'm here because we can't let comedy writing just be done by men.
Yeah.
Or I'm here to provide a woman's perspective. Or come on, Rob. You know I'm here to help you write jokes for the lady. You know, like something like that.
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Honestly,
she's there because she's funny as hell.
I just realized, I think her whole part could have been word for word, aside from the names, even with the name, honestly, nicknames exist. She could have been played by a man.
Yeah.
Probably would have done a different song, just like the Jimmy Durante bit. Part of the joke is that she's a woman singing like Jimmy Durante, but like, no part of that is super woman specific, which, you know, there's something to be said for roles written for people, blah, blah, blah. But I felt like in this case, at this time, that's kind of revolutionary for her not to be there saying like, all right, boys, settle down, listen to
Yeah.
mama or something like that. She doesn't do any of that, I don't think.
No, she doesn't. I genuinely want to find out if it was written for Rosemary.
Yeah.
Because she is so strongly in it, right? This isn't a case of like she's there and she gets a couple good lines and then later she grew into something. It's like what she is in the gumbo of the show is there immediately in this first episode.
Yeah. Oh, I love when the producer comes in and says they're invited to the party and...
Oh, yes, you may bring your wives, dates, or what have you.
Oh, goody. I'll bring my what have you.
She got in so much good stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would be curious to know if that was written for her. She's a very strong character right off the bat.
Part of what makes me think that they wrote some strong female comedy characters into this from the get-go is where this was filmed. This was filmed at Desilu Studios, so it's like they knew what side their bread was buttered on.
And I mean,
both sides.
both sides. I would actually be interested to learn whether Lucille Ball was involved in the show particularly, other than just it being her production company. Was she actually involved at all in the show coming together? I would be curious to know. But yeah, it's such a solid show. I wasn't expecting it.
Well, shall we move on to those segments?
Let's do it.
Where did the money go? Whenever we arrive at this point in an episode of Pilot House, we talk about where we think they spent the money on the pilot we have just watched. Sarah, do you have any speculations about the fiduciary disbursements of the producers of this program?
Well, this is kind of your baby, but I don't know that there was anything really obvious. It seemed very... You know what? I'll say this one was one that was very evenly distributed. My only guess I'll just throw out would be that I would not be surprised if someone told me, oh yeah, that show is known for having more rehearsal time than any other TV show or something like that, because everything was just so solid.
Yeah, that would make sense. Also, it felt like maybe something that was filmed in front of a live audience.
Oh, absolutely. No, 1000%. There is a joke. I can't remember. It's during them arguing about whether they're going to the party. There's a joke that was kind of one of those like subtle jokes. There wasn't a space given for it afterwards. Rob says something and Laurie immediately comes in and there's just like a few people laugh. Very, very kind of like, oh, and then they kind of pull it back because they realize, oh, the scene's still going on.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I went, oh, this was definitely a real audience because you don't get that with a laugh track. Laugh tracks are very, very uniform.
Yeah, it had the vitality of real people watching it.
Yeah, and honestly, I would love to know if... There's a lot of things I would love to know about the show, apparently. I keep saying that. But whether the bits they did at the party... Because those felt like well-worn bits. And
I don't think so.
No?
They felt like well-worn bits in the sense that I think they chose or created bits that really went to the strengths of each performer.
Yeah.
Or a type of bit that each performer was really good at. But I don't necessarily think that those were specifically well-worn bits. But it would be... I could see it going either way. I
mean, clearly in the episode, it was intended to be bits that these three people had done together many times before. At some point, Rob says to the band, like, the thing we did at the Christmas party. Yeah, you know what it is, or whatever. So maybe I'm just getting what they were putting out, that they just really nailed that. But I would also not be totally surprised to find out that the actor who plays Buddy and Rosemary and Dick Van Dyke had worked together previously. And this was at least they had that vibe of we've worked together, whether these bits were things they'd done before or not.
Exactly.
I mean, it felt so effortlessly, we're doing this thing that we've done before, but it's fun and people like it, so here it goes. And maybe they just nailed that vibe.
Enough said. Let's move on. Cliffs and Chips! In terms of relationships, I love the three main comedy writers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They really have an amazing vibe of three people who've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
But the relationship between Rob and Lori, between Dick
Pretty
Van
sure
Dyke
it
and
was
Mary
Lori,
Tyler Moore, it's so rare, in my opinion, that you get the first episode of a TV show where the married couple on it actually feel like an married couple who has been together at least long enough to have a 6-year-old, a boy child.
Yeah.
And this, they really did feel that way. There was a sense of being in some well-worn grooves. And usually the easy out on a sort of a longer span of relationship is you have the performative goofball husband, and then the wife is like rolling her eyes at because she's over it. And they don't lean on that at all. She's never really over it with his nonsense. She's just worried about her son and getting home, but she's still engaged with him and his back and forth, like when they're arguing about whether they go to the party or whatever. It just feels like the kind of back and forth that they've had many times before.
Yeah.
And that they both enjoy.
Yeah.
There's a sense of enjoyment in their arguing, because it's not mean bickering. It's genuinely trying to state your case to the other person.
Right, yeah.
And trying to sway someone's opinion, not trying to force them to make a decision.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed their relationship a lot as well. Other than obviously there's no like ships. There's no traditional ships for this, but I ship them as much as you can ship a married couple. They are delightful. I want them to stay being delightful. As far as predictions for the future, like season 1 cliffhanger, this is not that era of TV.
No. However, knowing that Carl Reiner appears as Alan Brady, like, I want to see that.
They pointedly avoided Alan actually appearing in that party.
Yeah.
That would be really funny if he is kind of a specter, a presence who never actually appears in the show. They talk about Alan, but they never actually see him.
Yeah.
That would be really funny if in the last episode of the season, Carl Reiner comes out. That'd be great.
I mean, the math almost checks out on that. They made 158 episodes of this, which I'm not shocked.
No.
And Carl Reiner appears in 35 of them. But does he actually physically appear, or is he like a voice yelling from the other room? Could be that.
He was credited in that many episodes.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, no, that seems like a reasonable prediction. So, shall we move right on?
Yes.
What will this show be?
In terms of speculating about the day-to-day of episode to episode for this thing, I think this was a pretty good picture of what we're going to be getting.
Yeah, definitely.
Some writer's room batting around, maybe some problems at home that they're solving, and a lot of excuses to make bits happen.
Yes.
Yep. I think that variety show vibe that I mentioned is something that will continue with this. There'll be a lot of moments where it's like, Dick Van Dyke, bumps his knee at the office and then he walks funny for the rest of the episode. There's like a lot of that kind of like teeing people up to do the funny thing.
Yeah.
And almost any plot concerns or anything like that is a backseat to teeing up these bits.
Absolutely.
I would really like to see a representation of the show they're writing for.
Yeah.
I really hope that there are episodes of this where we just get to watch the Alan Brady show. Fun.
Yeah. Like do like a kind of like a noises off style episode where like you're cutting back and forth, or oh my gosh, this would be fun. One that happens during the shooting of an episode, but it entirely takes place backstage, so you're just getting the people running around and them having to rewrite a bit on the fly or something like that.
Kind of like a Muppet Show backstage kind of vibe.
Oh, that'd be cool.
This property kind of hung around. So there was the Dick Van Dyke Show, and then a number of years later they made the new Dick Van Dyke Show, which I don't know. That ran for a while.
I don't know anything about it.
I don't know anything about that either. It may have just been more of the same.
Oh.
And then in 2003, for a season, there was an animated TV show called The Alan Brady Show that didn't have Dick Van Dyke in it, as far as I could tell, but Carl Reiner played Alan Brady. on it as well, and it was some sort of something. So if I want to see the Alan Brady Show, apparently I can just go watch the Alan Brady Show.
Technically, yeah. Okay, I think you've nailed it. It's going to be the same kind of back and forth between Rob and Laurie, bits being bounced around in the office with the trio, and yeah, excuses for funny gags, but well worked in excuses for funny gags.
Speaking of the folks doing all these funny gags.
Nice transition. Hey, it's that guy.
Obviously, I recognize Dick Van Dyke from his incredible cameo in Mary Poppins Returns.
Okay. All right. Well, this is the section where we talk about whether we recognize any of the actors, whether we know any of them from anything else, or just generally the people in the show. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously, Dick Van Dyke is Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah.
Iconic.
The second most famous Van Dyke brother, after Jerry, naturally.
Friend of the pod, Jerry Van Dyke.
Love you, Jerry.
Speaking of, they talk about being a martyr in this episode, and talk about being a martyr. Jerry Van Dyke gave up the opportunity to be Gilligan so that he could bring forth into this world, so he could birth the beautiful baby that is my mother, the car. Bless him.
Bless him.
Bless him. But anyway, you know what? I wanted to look up Rosemary. And now I have looked up Rosemary. And what I thought I knew about her is true, that she was a vaudeville performer as a child. Mm-hmm. And in the early days of sound films, she was known as Baby Rosemary, and she was a singer. Mm-hmm. I thought that was what I was thinking of, but I was like, there's a lot of people in early TV and stuff who were also vaudeville performers. So, yeah, everything about this woman screams old hand at this type of thing. So,
which is what inclines me to believe that the part was conceived for her.
Yeah.
That this was based on his actual experiences working as a writer.
Yeah.
Which, as you said, that he did base it on his real life.
Yeah, definitely. I looked up a little bit of information about it, and the show was based on Carl Reiner's life to a certain degree. Dick Van Dyke is loosely based on Carl Reiner. A lot of the characters are based on people that he knew. I couldn't find confirmation on Rosemary.
So the idea that he had worked with, if not Rosemary before, but a woman like her who's filling that role, it makes sense that he would include something like that.
Yeah. Interestingly, I also saw when I was looking up that there was originally a pilot shot with a totally different cast, but it was more or less the same premise. And it didn't go. And so Carl Reiner kind of reworked it and tweaked it, and it was called Head of the Family.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was like he kind of set it aside, and then when Dick Van Dyke having his own show, that became a thing. Like, we need a show for Dick Van Dyke. Carl Reiner, you got anything? And he's like, I might have something in my back pocket, you know.
This does feel like something that had some time to workshop and percolate.
Yeah.
And hearing that there was like a failed pilot of it before, it makes sense that this is what stuck.
Yes, absolutely. Apparently there is an episode of the show later on that reworks the actual plot of that other pilot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
that
covers that.
Let's move on.
I choose you.
I mean, I have a pretty strong choice for my favorite character in this episode. Do you?
I think if I had to pick my favorite character, as gauche as it is to do so, I would have to choose Rob. He's so much fun to watch. And if my second choice would have to be either Sally or Buddy, and I don't think I could choose between them. So.
Oh, it's hands down Sally for me.
Yeah. Okay.
She was perfect. And it's so rare to have a character just be perfect all the way through.
I can't argue with
that. Dick Van Dyke is fantastic in this, but he is less of a discovery for me.
Fair enough.
I've seen him be a wobble body before. I've seen his chin be 6 miles from his neck before. You know, I've seen a lot of the Dick Van Dyke isms before, but I've not seen Rosemary before, at least consciously, to be like, who is this?
Yeah. That's fair. No, I think if we'd record this on a different day, I might have said Rosemary too. Mm-hmm. You know, she is amazing. Sally is a great character. And yeah, you know what? Sometimes we couch this question as like, which is the character you want to see more of, that you want to see thrive and develop and become more of a character. And absolutely, Sally is the answer for that. Like, I'm looking forward to seeing how they develop her character and what else she gets up to. And
well, if that is the brief, then for me it's Laurie, Mary Tyler Moore.
Yeah,
she didn't get as much to do here, but I feel like there's a lot of potential for her to get some really good bits going forward.
Oh yeah, that's a very good point. Definitely. Yeah. I also look forward to seeing her growing more of a character. Sally seems sort of fully formed already, and I look forward to her future shenanigans and developing that character more.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, you're right. Laurie's a little... She certainly gets plenty of screen time, but her character is a little more one note. She's very focused on being a concerned mother in this episode. Yeah. And yeah, I do get the impression that there's a kind of a gives as good as she gets vibe to her character as the show goes on. Based on that gif that unfortunately was not in this first episode. But,
well, really quickly, can you tell me what the gif is? And then we'll jump to our that last segment that we do.
I'm torn between wanting to show it to you or describe it to you. I feel like you just have to see it. I feel like it would spoil it if I just tried to describe it.
Well, we definitely have to post a link to it in the show notes.
Yes. Here, let me pull it up. Because I brought it up, and the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I don't want to spoil it. I like kind of want you to come across it in the episode. I sort of wish I had.
I think we're going to leave this bit in. It's riveting podcasting.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty amazing. Apparently, it's not as popular a GIF as I thought it was because I'm having a hard time finding it. Oh, here we go. Damn it. It's on a Tumblr post. Okay. Right?
It was very good.
Oh God. Okay, and you know me, I like a tall drink of water myself. So I'm like, yeah, Mary Tyler Moore, I feel you, girl. Get it. All right, we will post that GIF. We don't have show notes. We'll post it on the Instagram. I don't know. We'll post it on Twitter.
You can include links in the text.
Oh yeah, I guess we can. Yeah, we just usually don't, but we could.
We don't. But
it'll be on the website. It'll be on the Twitter. I will post it all over this damn internet.
Look. Call me, and I will just print you a flip book.
Excellent.
Well, I don't think anyone will be surprised when they hear our
final verdict.
Did this pilot do the job of a pilot and make you want to watch more?
Absolutely.
1000%.
And I will happily watch ads to watch more of this.
Oh yeah. That's a marker too. I'm willing to put up with that being the only way that we could find to watch it. Like, it's worth it.
I really don't have anything else to say at this point. I really liked it. It's a yes from me. More of that.
Yeah, and it's funny because sometimes when it's like, oh my gosh, yes, I want to watch more of this. It's a show that has something really, some weird thing, some weird premise where I'm like, oh, I can't wait to find out what they're gonna do with that, or I have questions I want answered. This was just such a delight that I just want to see more of it. I want to see more of that trio doing shenanigans, and I want to see more of Rob and Laurie being adorable, and I want to see Mary Tyler Moore giving as good as she gets, and I want all of that. I just want that to keep happening to me, please. Thank you.
I love you so much, Sarah Shea, but I want that more than I want to keep recording this podcast. Let's go watch more of it.
How dare you? In my own house. We're not actually in my house. That's why it's funny. You guys aren't here, though, so you didn't...
In my pilot house.
You come to me on the day of my podcast wedding. And on that note, bye!
Thanks for listening to Pilot House. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Pilot House Pod. Visit our website, pilothousepodcast.com, or email us at pilothousepodcast@gmail.com to suggest future topics.
Please share this episode with a friend or rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps people find us.
Our podcast is entirely listener supported.
So thanks to our special guest stars, Cynthia, Tina, Juniper, and Jerry.
Visit patreon.com/pilothouse to find out how you can become a series regular.
Pilot House is a Herringbone Society production. All right, once more with feeling, now that we're on the right setting.
Trying again.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's fun to record podcasts. I'm touching the top of my head, the lips, the teeth, the tip of the tongue.
Yeah, red leather, yellow leather.
You love New York.
I need New York.
You know you need unique New York.
How unique is New York, really?
Well, it's definitely different than Old York.
That's very true. But how many rubber baby buggy bumpers does it have?
At least as many as the seashells that she sells by the seashore.